And we're back with Community Voice, and joining us this afternoon is Joe Thomas to start with, and then we'll be moving on after that. But Joe Thomas, after the intro.
Are we going in?
We're in.
Hello.
Hello, Joe.
Hello, how are you?
Andrea, all is good. And
It's
we've
very
got
good today, Paul. Yeah, and I'm keeping an eye on you today.
keeping an eye on me today.
Really am keeping an eye on Paul today.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
He's in one of them moods, Joe.
Oh, that's good to learn.
Yes.
I don't think. Do you know, if I wasn't nervous before, I'm now.
He's fine.
So, Joe.
Yes, Paul.
Tell us all about yourself.
Well, that'd take too long.
Okay. Why did you want to get into politics?
Well, I've always been involved in politics from when I was a very little girl, really. I was brought up in the coal mining area. Most of the men in my family, at one time, all the men in my family were coal miners. And because I was always a well-behaved little girl, I was allowed to sit in the lounge, with the men, listening to them talk about the NCB and, the NUM and the Labour Party. And, I learned an awful lot from when I was little. My grandfather was a community and county councillor. My cousin was. My father was a shop steward. My late husband was a community councillor and a county councillor. And then I married Gareth Thomas, who was the Member of Parliament for Clwyd West.
Right, so...
Which is the seat that you're standing in now, isn't it?
Exactly.
How does Gareth feel about that then?
Well, part of him is quite proud of me. The other part of him is quite cross with me because we had actually decided that after the 2017, that was it.
No
We'd
more.
done our bit and we were going to relax and just help push someone else forward and hopefully get them to win the seat of Clwyd West. But that changed a little because my sons told me something that really upset me. And it makes me quite emotional, actually. They said that my gene pool ends with them. And the reason for that being, they thought the world was too cruel a place to bring the children in, that we were ignoring climate change, that we weren't doing anything so that they could look forward. And that made me cross.
Why?
Because I wanted to be a grandma. And I thought, if that's how my sons are feeling, what about other young people?
Young people. My son's 21, and I've said it a couple of times that he missed out on the vote when the referendum was called, and he only just missed out. And he's not happy about that because, you know, now he's 21, 3 years down the line, and he's not had a say in that future. That's how he feels. So the younger ones are talking about their future, aren't they?
My sons aren't as young as yours. They're in their 30s, and they did vote in the referendum. And like their mum, they voted to remain. But it was just how everything has gone of late.
And do you agree with your sons?
I do.
Why? Why didn't you pick it up a few years ago yourself? Why did you have to have your kids tell you what to do?
Well, I did pick it up, but I didn't act. And you know when the protest was held in Colwyn Bay,
Yes.
with the young people there, and I was asked to go there to be a part of the protest, and I said, well, I can't very well go and protest because I was part of the problem. And I actually went there and I apologised to the young people that when the alarm went off, I just pressed the snooze button.
Yeah, I think there's a generation thing going on, isn't there? Because, you know, the Extinction Rebellion has been an uprising of the youth. Yeah. And they're making us realise what sort of damage is going on in the environment, whereas before we were blinkered, weren't we?
Well, I think possibly we were of the age, well, I was, where you're bringing up the children. Life has never been easy for me. So at that time I was struggling, working part-time. I was caring for my late husband then, their stepfather, and bringing up the boys. And of course, when he died, then there was just me and the boys. And you get so focused, you just want to survive. So I do understand how people feel. And then suddenly, when that faces you and you think, whoa, I have been sleeping. And I just felt the need, right, I've got to do something about this. And, well, and about the unfairness that made them feel hopeless, which I think is sad.
So, question on that would come a bit later, but it sort of links into the whole thing. And on the environment, you were around when there was coal mining, and then when it all changed and was decimated, and everything's moved on. How do you feel now that some of the environmental demands that are being made will actually decimate whole industries? Again, how do you think that should be managed?
Well, this is why we have the Green Revolution, the Green Industrial Revolution. We will be swapping those with the fossil fuels with the new wind farms, the tidal lagoon, solar panels, and all sorts of other things.
So there are other options, aren't there, to be more friendly, environmentally friendly, where power and energy is concerned?
I think in the past we were so wrapped up in coal mining and, you know, fossil fuels and things like that, that we were worried about losing jobs. And we were thinking more about workers and how people are going to live now. We weren't really thinking about further on, because people needed to eat now. But of course we're in the 21st century and things have progressed, And I think now we have the opportunity to get cleaner industry, which, you know, will help, I hope, to keep more young people in North Wales, actually.
So is that one of your top priorities in the manifesto? Because the Labour Party manifesto has got this green
industrial revolution.
Green industrial revolution. And there's plans in there to replace jobs that would traditionally be around fossil fuels and things like that. So is that one of your top priorities, Jo, then?
Well, it is, because, you know, this isn't a joke. Talking about climate change isn't just a political act. It's something that is happening, and we need to do something about it now.
Yeah.
So does that mean taking cars off the road now and turning down people's thermometers? Does that mean stopping big ships coming all over the world into Wales?
Well, eventually.
No, now.
No. Well,
now.
We can't do it now, because, as I say, people still need to eat. People need to work. We can't do that now. It's totally impractical.
But a lot of businesses can say to people, look, work from home today.
Well, it depends what you're doing. A lot of people do work from home anyway. But of course, you know, we have the new cars coming out, the hybrids, and goodness. All this will be filtered in time. We can't just stop everything, unfortunately.
What year is in the manifesto for Labour then, for the carbon?
Well, we're going to aim to have most of the ones that create power by 2030, but we're aiming at 2050 now.
I suppose the issue for me is often politicians come and talk about a time when they'll be dead, that things will have happened. But I suppose I'm interested in what's going to happen over the next few years, that's going to happen quickly, that's going to put... Because if we're at a tipping point now in climate change, we need to do things now.
But we can take responsibility a little for ourselves. I mean, I can't remember when I last went on a plane. I travel as little as possible as I can with a car. We turn the heating down that little bit more. I live in an old lodge, so I'm afraid we still have an open fire there. But we use less coal. The logs we use are mature, you know, they've been dried out. We try and do the little things, and if it gets that cold, well, believe me, we put on another sweater and Gareth puts on a woolly hat. You know.
I can see Gareth in his woolly hat. To be fair, I think we've talked about the environment with all our candidates and you know what sort of policies that their parties are putting forward, but also something that I thought as well is the plastics. You know, with all the plastics that are going to the sea, and why isn't there a policy that tells these massive multinational organisations they can no longer use plastics in their product, it's for their packaging?
Well, I think they're starting to do that themselves, actually. An awful lot of businesses are being responsible. And look at how shoppers have changed. I mean, look what the Assembly brought in. I know it doesn't sound much now, but I owned a shop at the time and they stopped. You know, we had to start charging for the carry bags, the plastic carry bags. So that's made a big difference.
So you, just going back to you, and you've been in politics for a long time.
Well, on the sidelines, Paul.
On the sidelines?
Yes.
What experience have you got? Have you been involved in business? I'm just trying to work out what you would offer to the area as a whole, which is made up of small people, but some doing big things in big businesses.
Yeah.
How would you actually support them in the area?
Well, the thing
if
is,
you were elected?
I owned a little clothes shop in Ruthin, and the timing was brilliant. I took it over in 2007. That was good timing, wasn't it? And by 2015, I thought, no, I think it's time to close it now before I really have to close it. I did notice a big difference. In 2007, I have to admit, the little shop was very busy. 2008, busy. And it was October 2009. After having the busiest week that I'd had for months, it just went so quiet. And then in the February, it started to lift again. And I'm afraid I am, well, you expect me to be political. 2010, you know, the promise, not going to increase VAT, we're not going to increase national insurance. And they did, the Tories and the Lib Dems. And, you know, that had a big effect on my little shop. Austerity had a huge effect because an awful lot of my customers came from over the border and they worked in public sector.
You mean in England?
In England.
Oh, cool.
I know, dreadful, eh? But, no, bless their hearts.
They know quality, don't know quality.
Indeed. But they were, you know, lovely people, and they came over because they had conferences to go to and balls and things like that. And that stopped. So, of course, that did have a very big effect on me.
So with the Labour Party manifesto then, for small businesses,
yes,
are you keen to implement and get a government in that's going to support small? How does the Labour Party manifesto support small business then?
Well, there's a raft of things that they have, and quite frankly, I can't remember to tell you all.
But
it's being proactive. Yeah, we are supporting the smaller businesses, and of course we have the you know, I can't remember what it is, the National Fund, which we actually have in Wales already. In fact, I went on a visit to a business near where I live with Mark Drakeford back in August, and this company had been given help by the National Welsh Development Fund.
Is it the North Wales Growth Fund? Or is that a different one? Yeah, there's a North Wales Growth Fund. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, but sometimes you see businesses just need that little bit to help them over, that the banks aren't very kind, very...
But one can say that all businesses like that, what experience do you have in actually getting the right money to the right businesses at the right time?
Well,
because that's critical, isn't it?
Yes, but you know, you're not alone when you're doing this job. You do have people advising you. They have people pointing you the right way. And when you're in the position, of course, you're absorbed in it, and you learn things that much quicker, things that are more important.
So you're learning?
Of course I am.
Yeah.
Of course I am.
If you were to be elected,
yes,
as an MP then, the different MPs tend to go into different types of specialities, different types of boards where they have their sort of strengths. Where would you sort of fit in Parliament? Where's your strengths?
Well, I believe my strength is just with people who need help, actually. I'm boring. Because Parliament isn't just about the financiers and the big business people. You know, there are people who are struggling to live day by day. And I think when people do come to their Member of Parliament, they are desperate. Because I think, actually, the MP is the last port of call. And then you have to be patient and listen to them and be prepared to help them.
Did you learn a lot from Gareth then, from his years as an MP? Did you pick up on what it means to be an MP from Gareth?
Well, when we were married in 2003, and I moved up here, before we got married, I was a secretary to Delith Evans, who was the Assembly member for Mid and West Wales. So I learnt a lot from her, actually, because she was very good on holding surgeries. And we held them, you know, from our own patch, where the office was in Llanelli, up to as far as Harlech. And so you learnt lots of things from different people there, and how to guide them and how to help them. So when Gareth and I got married in 2003, I think his secretary up here saw the writing on the wall, basically, and she got another job. So I went to work for him in the Colwyn Bay office while he was in London. And yes, you do learn an awful lot.
Okay, but things are different, aren't they now, I suppose, to when Gareth was an MP? Because politics has gotten very, very messy.
Yes.
What do you think, how do you feel about going into a parliament, possibly, that's been such a mess? I mean, one of the questions that have come in is, you know, how, I think it was David Jones from Prestatyn Connect, about how many do you think the Conservatives will win by? You know, this is one of the questions. We get all kinds of different questions coming in, Joe. But
Do you think they're going to win?
Do you think you're going to win? Do you think Labour are going to win?
Or Conservative?
I think we have a chance. I really believe we have a chance of winning.
And do you think that you could get that majority, which is what's caused so much problems, hasn't it, for the last 3.5 years? Is any government not having that majority?
Well, I have to admit my crystal ball is a little bit dirty because I haven't had time to do much polishing since the campaign started. So I couldn't tell you, but you know, we're all working really hard, and the welcome we got getting on the doorstep is far better than I expected. You know, given all this confusion with Brexit, will you forgive me? Excuse me. I have to admit, when we well, I was selected in the February, and we started knocking doors then, and we just assumed that everyone would want to leave. Well, most would, because that was the result in Clwyd West. But I was really shocked, because people were saying, well, no, now it's gone on longer. We do know more about it. We thought we understood then, but we've discovered that an awful lot of lies were said, and now we've had time to look into it more. And if we were given the chance, we would want another referendum, which was a surprise to me, because even though I campaigned for Remain and voted for Remain, and I remember Nigel Farage, before he realised that Leave had won, said that if it was a narrow margin, and believe me, the margin he said was narrow was wider than it is, he wanted another referendum. But of course all that changed when they won. So I was surprised at the number of people who said that. And I think my favourite response was when we went on one door, and a man answered the door, and, you know, I wasn't asking, are you going to vote Labour? It was just, look, we're here, there isn't an election at the moment.
This was before the election was called.
We're going back to March.
Right, okay.
We just want to know what's important to you. What concerns do you have? And he said, well, I don't know, really. And I said, well, you know, how do you feel about Brexit? With that, I heard his wife say, tell her. Go on, tell her. And what had happened, that day, they'd had a bit of a barney. She was a strong Remainer. So was he, actually. But he said, well, I thought I'll spite her. He said, my vote hasn't made a difference before, because I voted Labour for the past few times. And I thought, right, I'll vote to leave. And he said, you can imagine my shock when what I voted for happened. I said, well, that's the power of the ballot paper.
It's the power of voting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I
And
just
it's a
ask
very powerful thing to use your vote.
Totally. Just following that through, a number of people said they left because of immigration. And that was what was peddled all the way through. What are your views on immigration in North Wales? Do you think we should have more immigration coming in, more people coming in? Or do you think we should have great controls? And what's the Labour Party view on it overall?
Well, I think we need as many as we need.
What does that mean? Many as we need. Who makes the decision, though?
Well, the thing is, if you're talking about immigration and Brexit, I mean...
No, just immigration overall.
Oh, OK. Well, yes, I mean, where would we be without immigrants?
So we'd let anyone into the country?
Well, if they're qualified to do the work.
But if they're not qualified, they're just escaping asylum.
Oh no, that's a different matter altogether.
Or if they're escaping environmental decay of their homelands because of what's happened over time. If they're going away from arid deserts, or they're moving away
Is that
from
refugees?
No, not just, well, economic refugees,
environmental refugees.
Environmental refugees.
Refugees.
Would you welcome those more?
Yes,
as many as wanted to come into North Wales?
Well, you know, they keep saying we're not having things in North Wales because we don't have enough population. Perhaps that might be a way of solving that problem.
So you'd be in favour of unlimited?
Well, it can't be unlimited, can it? But how do you set a cap?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to work out. You've said...
But we have to be practical. We do have to accept, you know, a lot... To be fair, a lot of the environment problems we in the West have caused.
Yes. So should we
So,
not take...
so I think we should take some responsibility.
Would the market not sort out how many came to the area or not?
Well, I would have thought so. Things tend to work out for themselves. We are the ones who put obstacles there. Nature has a way of sorting itself out.
I think it's an interesting subject because people do get mixed up between the refugee policies and immigration policies. And the immigration policies tend to be more around the working immigration
yes.
people and the need, and then the refugees is about fleeing a country, and the refugee policy comes under the UN convention. And one thing that I did ask the other candidates actually about the refugee policy, because of the Brexit situation and closing the borders, which was one of the big issues around the Brexiteers, would that mean that they would then want to come out of the UN policy, the UN convention? Because that would mean we're still in that convention. So Labour is fully supportive of the refugee and the UN convention in 1951.
Yes.
There's no sort of coming out of that for Labour.
Well, not that I'm aware of. Yeah. So that's not one of my principles. Well, no, and do you know, the world is getting smaller, and I do think we need to be more welcoming to people and take some responsibility for things that we have done. And when you see, you know, the refugees caused by war, well, I'm sorry, we've been very guilty in that department, I feel. And you can't just say, oh, well, that was then. No, there are things happening
now. I mean, we talked to James Davis, didn't we, Paul, about Syria, and do we think that the UK are supposed to be a peace, providing peace to the world, or do you think that we're actually causing more problems?
Well, I think historically we have been the cause of problems. We've gone in there thinking that we know best. And of course, it's not always the case. And then, we've ended up in war. I mean, look how friendly certain politicians were with Gaddafi, with Saddam Hussein. And then all of a sudden, they're the bad guys after we'd given them...
But
yes.
Labour
yes.
took us into war in those areas.
Yes.
And it was very clear Labour policy to take us into war in those areas, and millions of people have died as a consequence.
Yeah.
Do you take responsibility for that as Labour?
Well, I think we have to. I know some politicians from the opposite side have said that given the information, that they would have dealt with it in the same way, that they would have gone in there. Perhaps I shouldn't bring my leader into it, but Jeremy Corbyn did try and put the brakes on there. And, you know, people just treat him as a joke, and he isn't. In history, what he has said, he has been right in saying so.
So how would you make amends to those people?
Because I have no idea how we would start, Paul. I really don't. And can I say, I think also to our own soldiers who we sent in.
Yes.
What's under the Labour Party manifesto then, where the military is concerned? So looking after the military, looking after the soldiers. We know that Jeremy Corbyn is a peace broker rather than a warmonger, should we say? Yes. But what have Labour got to provide? You know, what are they telling the military services then in their manifesto?
Well, we've got our five-point pledge to the military services, and I think they're very important. The first one will be the removal of the pay cap. A private going in now receives approximately £1,129 less in real terms than they did in 2010.
So their budget is their wages are the same as like nurses and other public services. They've not been increased.
No.
Right. Okay. People did, because it's never mentioned really. That is it?
No, it isn't.
No.
And you know, we
I'm
prepare these people to go. You know, these people go in, risk our lives to protect us.
Yeah.
Another thing would be the housing. Because at the moment, if they don't have appropriate housing where they're based, then they have to find private sector housing.
That never used to happen, did it, at one time?
Well, we are now saying that we are going to build the housing, make sure that they...
we sold off all the armed forces housing to a Japanese bank many years ago, and I can't remember if that was under Labour or the Conservative government, and that bank had contracts in place. Should we just get rid of those because we had a deal?
I didn't know you knew that, Paul.
I meant
Sometimes he knows so much more than me, you know.
He knows more than I do.
I didn't know you knew
I met
that.
the chief executive of the armed forces once,
Did
talking
you?
about housing.
Oh, insider information.
There you go.
That's not fair.
So basically, the manifesto says that there's going to be provision for housing then.
But that are owned
Again,
by not the private sector, but the public sector.
Oh.
Also, that there will be a voice for servicemen and women. That will be the creation of something like the Police Federation, so that they can go somewhere.
So there isn't at the minute. There's
Not at
no
the moment.
voice for the military.
No.
So, yes, I think that's one of the things I've always been disappointed about. Basically, officers or soldiers, when they leave, they're on their own. Which brings me on to a great point, because you've led us nicely into it.
And I've only said 3 of the pledges.
And that's only 3 of the pledges.
Two more pledges.
We'll get back to those, but if you can answer this one first.
Go on then.
How's Labour going to pay for all of these that you've mentioned so far? And then I'm sure you'll tell me the rest of the pledges. But how are Labour going to pay for all this? Because a number of financial groups have said it's not doable.
Well, others have said that it is.
So who said it has?
Well, I know the IFS, the bits that I saw on the television, were rubbishing it. And then later on, they were saying, well, actually, no, it is doable. And it is because...
Are you going to raise taxes to do it? Are you going to just tax the rich?
What's the policy,
what's the
basically, around how the manifesto is going to be, the pledges are going to be funded?
Well, it has to be those with the most money who will pay. I mean, when you look at corporation tax, we're only talking about raising it a little. Margaret Thatcher had it higher than we plan on doing it. But that will make a difference. Why shouldn't we tax the billionaires more? I wouldn't want them to run away from Britain, because we need them.
Why shouldn't they?
Sorry?
Why shouldn't they if you tax them more?
Well, the thing is, it's a balance, isn't it? Because without a good workforce, they're not going to be billionaires. They're not going to make as much money. They need a good, hard-working, well-trained, well-educated, healthy workforce. And that is what we are aiming to do. Because then that helps both sides of the equation, doesn't it?
So how are you going to pay for it? You're going to tax the rich?
Yes.
Are you going to increase corporation tax?
Yes.
Are you going to have people working longer so they don't take the pensions out?
No, actually, the Tories want to increase that.
I'm not bothered about the Tories. They can speak for themselves.
No, we are going to stick to where we are now.
Are you going to put up taxes, other taxes, VAT?
No.
So where's the money coming from? Because so far... We have gone down the last few years. We've increased our national debt, and now you're talking about massive spending. All nice things. I don't have a problem. They're all nice and worthy things.
Well, they're not nice. They're important things for the country to generate more money.
But why can you do it, and why can't other governments do it?
Perhaps it's called a will. Where there's a will, there's a way.
I think within the manifesto then, because if we're going about costings of any manifesto,
I haven't studied the grey book, by the way.
So the green book,
the grey book,
the grey book actually. So if anybody wants to see the Labour Party costings of any of their pledges,
they should be able to download.
That's in the grey book. The grey book. Yes. Okay, because I'm not sure like you said, the Conservatives can answer for themselves. And it's one thing we didn't ask, which we probably missed really with David and James, is how their manifesto and how their pledges were going to be funded.
Well, the thing
So
is, you can,
the
with
Labour
all due
Party,
respect, I can't go through every single little bit. But it's in the Grey Book.
So I understand it's in the Grey Book. I also understand it's very difficult for a party that's not in power to actually come up with some of these costings, because, like any business plan, there's assumptions made and all these sorts of things. But who has put these together in the Labour Party? Is it the conference? Is it specialist people?
Well, conference does put certain things forward. For example, when we went with Brexit, that was a conference decision, how we dealt with that. But no, they don't just trust us, they have to be practical. And we do have people there who know, gosh, far more than I, who work these things out.
So
They don't just click a figure.
So John McDonnell will be possibly the Chancellor under Labour.
Yes.
So any economic policy, would he be responsible for with a team to put that, or is it external? Will John McDonnell be the one to...
Well, he will be the one who has to...
then?
Well, yes, as a Chancellor, that's what they do. They're the figurehead of that. And to be fair, when he was in the GLC, the Greater London Council, they never went over budget.
He's very good with his figures then.
Oh, yes.
I'm just going to say, Paul, that we're on 22
and
already.
I was
Of course,
thinking,
it's gone.
Already.
Sorry, I didn't mean speech
and
there,
we
Paul.
have a couple of questions
I've got one
maybe
here.
to come in.
Oh, here we go. He looks too happy on this
He
one.
does, doesn't he? Told you, didn't I?
Labour, WASPy women, women of a certain...
I am one.
You are one? Would you guarantee that if you had the balance of power, that you would reinstate this straight away?
You mean in the form of a lump sum?
Yes.
Well, if we could afford to do that, I would have assumed that that would have been in our manifesto.
It's not in your manifesto in that way. It's sort of like legal...
This was an extra...
It's like legal speak. We may, within certain time, within certain ways, up to a certain limit.
Well, no, it's not just may. It has been... It's between the 50-year-old...
That's right.
and the 55-year-old.
Yeah, maximum 30,000.
That's it. And then from 55 on to 59, really, because the ones who were, 1960...
The
they
Grey
won't be
Book's a
having-
fascinating read.
They are. Well, the thing is, you see, that isn't in our manifesto.
No, that's fair enough. So, would you do that straight away?
If I had the money, I
No,
would.
not you, the Labour Party.
Well, as I said, if they could have, I'm sure they would have.
Well, it's always a matter of priorities. They've got billions and billions, haven't they? So it's priorities each time.
I think
From what I understand, how they're going to do it, well, we know where the money's coming from. But how it's going to be worked out, I think there is more thought needed to that. Because I've had a number of WASPy women get in touch with me, and, shall we say, because of their age, they were, and some lost their homes because of this. And as they say, £100 a week isn't exactly going to help them there.
No.
And also the £100 a week will affect other things other payments that they get, which it shouldn't really.
No.
If it's a compensation.
And so,
will it be? Is it actually a pledge by the Labour Party to do this? But there'll have to be a certain procedure in carrying that out.
Yes,
Then.
but from what I understand, the way they're going to do it, it gives us a direction of how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
you're talking about Labour Party as though it's a separate entity to you, and you're...
I said me. You said no, the Labour Party.
And the local person is you. You one and whole.
Well, of course I'd want it whole.
It's you.
But if you can't have it whole, no other party is promising anything. At least the Labour Party has recognised that there is a wrong, to write.
So
Promises are like mist in the morning,
It's
aren't
not
they?
a promise, it's going to be paid.
It's going to be paid. That's what I wanted to know.
Well, yes, we've said so, and it's coming out, not from the manifesto, because I know some of the WASPy women I've spoken to say, well, it's not in your manifesto, so it's not in your little grey book. It doesn't feature anywhere. Well, if you go back to the day to the coal miners' compensation, that wasn't in anyone's manifesto. that came out of a separate block, and that's what is going to happen with the Waspy women.
So that's how Labour are planning
Yes.
on following through with that pledge. So
Yes.
it's a pledge rather than a policy in the manifesto.
Well, it's compensation, and
It's
we're
compensation.
recognising that a wrong is to
Can
be...
I ask then,
Go
moving
next
on,
one, moving on, yeah.
moving
Okay.
on, yes. Right, so Rob says, how far is UK independence a myth and we are an EU partner or we dance to Trump's tune? So I think what Rob's saying there, how far is UK independence a myth and we are an EU partner or we dance to Trump's tune? I think he's a Remainer by the sounds of that. And I think it's about Brexit and can we actually remain in the EU then, rather than dancing to Trump's tune?
Well,
That's how I'm interpreting that question.
Well, as you've
Yes.
probably heard, the
Yes.
Labour Party, if we are elected, will be giving another referendum, which will be a deal that they will have agreed with Europe, but with the option to remain. And I will again be campaigning, and I will vote to remain.
So you support the Remain
Well,
side?
I do,
but
because
that's what you-
however magnificent a deal anyone gets, I think we have the best deal as we are.
But if your constituents
Yes.
said to you, we want to leave, would you support them? And in general, would you support your constituents against your own personal view or Labour's view?
Well, the thing is, my constituents will be able to speak with their own voice. They won't need me to speak for
But
them.
they're voting for you
But
and
if
expecting you to
they're-
follow their will.
Well, I've told them where I stand. If they don't agree with me, then they shouldn't vote for me.
So basically, what this election then has been not just about Brexit, and I think what we've said to all the candidates when they've come in actually is that Brexit is a small part. It's a part, it's a priority for some people, but other policies, domestic policies, really have come to the throw. So within each constituency, people will be voting for a variety of things for their representatives to represent them in Parliament.
I mean, I have to admit, you know, on my little slip, I got a contact, and people have been in touch with me, and they really don't care what any other policy is. Brexit, is it for them? Well, I'm sorry, I'm not the girl for them then.
Yeah. So, I mean, we haven't got into health, and we'll...
Fair enough.
A colleague,
national
a
households.
colleague of yours is coming. We may get more on that, but there are quite a few questions. Fox hunting. Are you into killing foxes?
No.
Are you into any forms of hunting?
If it means that it puts food on the table,
If it means it puts food on the table.
yeah. And I have to admit, I'd be a hypocrite if I said, you know, I'm off. I eat pheasant. I expect someone to kill that for me. But you know, I eat beef. I eat lamb.
Paul's a vegetarian.
That's fine. Oh, listen,
Aren't you, Paul?
Yeah.
one of my friends is a vegan, and there we go.
Oh, but
It's a matter of choice. And yeah, so you basically
but
say...
there's
if
the
you
difference between...
If it's gratuitous, no. If it is to put food on the table, yes.
Foxes aren't often put on the table, are
No,
they?
they're not. No.
But deer are. Hares, maybe. So you're okay about...
I'm not hare coursing. I mean, I don't like hunting with dogs. No, I think that's cruel.
So
More cruel than a gun.
they should all be disbanded.
Well, you know, they do drag hunting, don't they? Yeah, can you see my eyes going? That's what is supposed to be happening.
I don't believe that either. Go on, carry on.
I think we've got 5 minutes
Okay.
before we go down and get Chris.
Yes.
And so the last 5 minutes we just say to yourself, Joe, why would you say to people, I'd like to, actually I've got to mention your hair.
Okay.
It's absolutely stunning. What's going on quickly with what's going on with your hair?
Right.
People are going to want to know.
Okay. My hair used to be the colour of the suffragettes. Purple, green and white. And my hairdresser would always go, when are you going to do the rainbow for me? He said, well, when it matters. When it means something. So, of course, June the 28th this year was the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots over in America. And on June the 27th, I went into my hairdresser and he just looked at me and he said, "You're going to do it?" I said, "Yes." And then I went to the Eisteddfod and I called frequently into the Stonewall stand there. And of course they'd say, "Oh, why did you do it?" And it was because of the Stonewall riots that happened over in New York.
And the Stonewall riots were to do with the LGBT community?
Yes,
okay.
It's when things kicked off. And he said, "Well, how long are you going to keep it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to keep it till next June the 27th. And he said, "Well, no, actually." He said, "You're going to have to keep it longer than that, because after the Stonewall riots, the following year, they commemorated that event by going on a march.
Yes.
And that was the first Pride March.
Oh, right, okay.
So I now have to keep this going until after.
Right. And
Okay.
then there'll be... Yeah, sorry. So, 5 minutes, Joe.
No, we've got 10 minutes. We've got 10. Oh, just over 10.
Have we got just
Yeah,
over
have
10?
We have got over 10.
Have we really?
Yes,
We
do.
have. So
Right.
a few more questions. Firstly, your other two promises.
Sorry?
You said there were 5 things, and you mentioned 3.
For the military.
Yes, I'm trying to remember which ones I gave you now.
I think you said housing.
I said the
I think
housing,
you
I said
said
the
about
money.
the wages.
Yes, I also said about the voice.
Yes, the voice, yeah.
The one that I feel is very important is to do with the children when they go to a new school, that school has a special strategy in place to understand the special needs of children that, continuously move. And, do you know, I've forgotten the 5th one because I've been jabbering on too much.
Okay. Just on that, NHS is a devolved issue in Wales.
Yes.
The Welsh and English systems are different. Which one is the better one? Which gets better service for people, in your mind?
I would say the Welsh one.
Why?
If it had proper funding, then it would be, because...
But we spend more than the English per person in Wales.
Well, the thing is, in this area, for example, there is one section of this constituency that has the highest percentage of 65-year-olds in the UK. And that percentage is 82%. And so,
Is that in your constituency?
yes, in
Clwyd
Clwyd West. Yes.
And which area is that?
I'm not going to tell you, or they'll think that I'm calling that particular
Okay.
area.
But overall across,
Yes.
Welsh people get more per capita for health than English people.
Is that because it's allocated by the Welsh government?
That's
Yeah.
the way it's
That's the way the Welsh
allocated.
government does
Yeah.
it.
So the Welsh government allocates the health.
So it has
divisions.
more money per person than the English system. So why isn't it doing a lot better?
Well, to be fair, for years before we had the Assembly, Wales was very poorly funded.
But it's not now.
No. Well, it is actually.
Okay.
Funding has gone down since
But so
for
is
the past 10
everyone's
years.
funding.
Yes, I know it has. But we're talking about Wales, and with all due respect, I'm more concerned about the people in Wales.
But why are we not doing better in Wales?
I cannot answer you that.
Because
If I'm honest.
you're Labour,
Yes.
the AMs that run Wales are Labour. So why aren't we doing better over here?
So
Well, to be fair, things are starting to get better.
So the demographic, because I mentioned the demographic to James Davis the
Yeah.
other day, didn't I? And we've got a different demographic in Wales. So the health needs in Wales are going to be a lot different to the health needs. Is it more expensive? Are the health needs in Wales more expensive
Well, in
because
certain
of the
areas, no.
demographic?
If you go back to pre-Assembly and during the Assembly, when it started off as well, we did have a Labour government in Westminster and we were better funded. We also had the issue then of the coal miners, the lungs issue and things like that. So we did need more funding with that. Now, we have an older population in certain areas.
In certain, but not
In certain
across the
areas.
country as a...
No, No, not across the country.
So
as a whole.
why is it more
But
expensive overall? Is it a system that's in place?
I haven't really looked into it fully. I know that in our own area here with the Betsy Cadwallader, we have had certain issues, shall we say.
Serious problems, I would say.
I know, but at least some of them are improving. And we are putting more money into it. And it will get better. It is improving slowly.
Is it the money or the management?
I think it's a combination, if I'm honest.
So why don't we get rid of the management?
Sorry?
Why don't we get rid of the management then?
Well, I think we need to give this lot a chance first.
Do you think under the if Labour actually become a government in Westminster,
Yes.
do you think that will change things for Wales then?
Well, I think it will, because we will receive better funding. I think it's about 3.4 billion on top of the Barnett formula.
On top of, is that what's been promised for Wales?
Yeah, but you see, to be fair to Paul, money isn't everything.
No,
Quite right there.
totally
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Money isn't everything. And we have a saying in Welsh, I mean, some people aren't going to like me from it, but there we go. Nid all lle gellir gwell. Something isn't good if it can be improved upon. And I think we cannot afford to take our eye off the ball again, because I think it has been, historically. And it just needs to be worked at harder. And it is being improved, slowly but surely. There are some areas that I would like to see a little more put in, but there we go. We are getting there.
Do you believe in the, because there's another question that we've asked the other candidates, so with the NHS it's a big one. Many people that I've spoken to personally that's one of their priorities, or might be their main priority. And there's different legislation that's come through from England to Wales. Wales have stuck by the original Act of 1945.
With the public
With
ownership,
public ownership, NHS free at the point of need.
Yes.
So for the manifesto and for yourself, is that what you pledge? Is that what you believe in? Because it has been going into more private sector.
Well, of course, that is the whole intention of having the National Health Service, is for it to be free at the point of delivery. And I think that's a pledge to the people that we made here.
Free at point of delivery, do you think we should have more privatisation?
No.
Do you think we should have less?
Yes.
Would you scrap independent GPs and dentists and pathologists?
Well, I think things are starting to change there slowly anyway, aren't they?
Certainly in different parts of Wales, they are coming under health boards
Yes.
now. Yes. OK, now we've got 5 minutes.
All right, what do you want to ask me?
Yes, Joe.
Whatever you want to do. Why should anyone vote for you?
That's probably Chris giving me a call.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to trust Paul and me alone? Or do you want to go down?
Shall I go
Yeah.
down?
Yes, if you scream, come up.
I will. I'll come rescue you.
Well, it depends what people believe in. I believe in equality of opportunity and fairness for all. I don't think it's too ideological. I believe we can achieve it if we wish to achieve it. And I would just be there for people. I talk a lot, I listen very well, and I do act. And if I don't know the answer to something, then there will always be someone within my party who does.
OK, thank you very, very much. That wasn't too bad, was it?
Well, I don't know, you're not sitting here. No, I think I'm still breathing.
You're still breathing?
Yeah.
No, that's really good. And thank you, and wish you all the best in whatever you do.
Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you. Let's have some music as we move on.